I was sitting in front of my computer as the strange website loaded up on my screen. It was far too late, and I should have been in bed hours ago. I peeked over at the clock, considering if it was even worth going to bed, or if I should pull an all-nighter and just pretend I didn't need rest. But the website had captivated me. I was intrigued by the single line of text displayed in its center. "How are they going to die?" was all it said. There were a lot of questions going through my mind. Who was going to die? And what kind of weird game was it? So I clicked on the text, which brought up a single text box for me to type into. Name and birth date was all it said. I mulled the questions over, thinking I should start with someone I knew had already died. My old physics professor came to mind. He'd always been a real dick, and as a lifelong chain smoker, it came as no surprise as he had succumbed to lung cancer. Leonard Harris, 7th of August, 1961, I typed in. I sat back in my chair as the page loaded. I half expected it to just pick out people's obituaries from the internet. A few seconds later, a response was posted. Leonard Harris, lung cancer, 12th of September, 2016. I had to admit, it was kind of cool. I started searching up family members and old acquaintances I knew had passed, but whose deaths were shrouded in mystery. I started with my grandfather, who'd just one day been listed as dead. I was too young to understand, and my mother never cared to explain what had happened. Jonathan Lawrence, 29th of April, 1937. He'd died an old man, so I just presumed it was a heart attack or a stroke. I'd never seen his dead body myself, and since my mother refused to talk about it, I wanted to know. Jonathan Lawrence, suicide, 17th of October, 1999. The answer replied. I couldn't believe it. The date was correct. But the case... Had my grandfather really killed himself? She answered in her usual cheerful tone of voice, happy to hear from me, but her tone quickly changed as she heard my distressed voice. "What's wrong?" she asked. "How did Grandpa die?" I asked. "What do you mean? Why would you ask that?" she said back. "Did he kill himself?" She went silent for a moment before responding. "How did you find out?" We talked for a while after that, and my mother finally came clean about everything that had happened. She talked about my grandfather's Alzheimer's diagnosis, the depression that followed, and his eventual death at his own hands. I never told her how I found out, and she never asked a second time. Despite the uncomfortable topic, the honesty did actually bring us closer together. Once she'd hung up, I went back to the website. Though it seemed impossible, it held the secret deaths of so many people that had died in mysterious ways. I started looking up celebrities and unsolved missing people cases, though I couldn't confirm that any of them were correct. It seemed eerily believable how it always came up with a logical and plausible solution that fit each case. Then I made the biggest mistake of my entire life and typed in the name of someone who hadn't died yet. I don't know even what promoted that ridiculous idea. I guess I just wanted to see what the system would come up with, or if it would just let me know that the person was still alive. I put the name of my very best but incredibly stupid friend, Alex Branson, 2nd of June, 1993. The system loaded, and before long an answer had been calculated. Alex Branson, broken neck, 10th of March, 2021. I sat back in my chair, confused as to what I was reading. The 10th of March was still a couple of weeks away, yet it had marked it as the death date of my best friend. I closed the website then and there, not because I believed in the prediction, but because of an uneasiness I just couldn't explain. A bizarre sense of certainty that he'd just die. I debated whether or not to tell, but in the end I thought it best not to scare him. After all, the website couldn't possibly predict the actual death of someone still living. It was just impossible. So I saved the page, thinking it might be fun to check out once Alex was safe. But on the 10th of March, 2021, Alex didn't show up to work. No one thought much of it at first. He had a tendency to oversleep. But his death prediction lingered in the back of my mind. I sent him a few messages, just asking if he was coming to work at all. I tried to sound nonchalant. But based on the sheer number of texts I sent out, I guess I came across as concerned. But he never responded. It wouldn't be after that afternoon before I got a call from the hospital. Alex was dead, suffering from a broken neck, after drunkenly stumbling off a sidewalk as he was chatting up a couple of women. They'd call an ambulance, but then they just left him to die on the street. An embarrassing, but not surprising way for him to go. I couldn't even respond. I just got back in my chair and tried to process the message. The site had been right. Alex had died exactly as predicted, and I'd done nothing to prevent it.